Hello, my name is Ahmad, and in this presentation I shall critically assess the International City County Management Association Code of Ethics, otherwise referred to as the ICMA Code of Ethics. It is an ethics code of local government managers. I am primarily interested whether the code gives some morally reasonable and practically helpful advice on ethical leadership at the organization. I will talk about its origin, reasoning, extent, conduct, ethical theories, theories of leadership, its strengths, weaknesses, and suggestions for how it should be improved. I would generally say that the ICMA code is robust since it integrates professional values and enforceable principles. Nonetheless, it would be more successful with a better articulated ethical decision-making process, enhanced speak-up policies, quantifiable indicators, as well as publicly reported ethics initiatives. This code is issued by the ICMA as the Professional Association for Local Government Managers. The code was initially adopted in the year 1924. The version to be tested in my final project was corrected in May 2025, and the interpretation, rules, and enforcement protocols were updated. This history is important, as the code is not a mere iconic pronouncement. It is a dynamic system of ethical practice that has professional expectations, interpretive guidance, revising complaints, confidentiality, due process, appeals, and sanctions. Its main justification is to safeguard the professional local government integrity. It bridges proficient administration and democratic responsibility, an unbiased civil service, innovation, custodianship, and public trust. That is, the code presupposes that technical competence is not sufficient to be elected as a leader. Managers should also have a moral professional identity, which dictates the way they exercise power. The code also establishes fair boundaries with regard to personal behavior. It does not even strive to dictate the personal life of a member. The issue of private behavior is germane when it touches on the service of the people, institutional integrity, trust in the government, discharge of the official functions, or misuse of the office. Such a balance is reasonable since the local government managers occupy roles where the interests of the populace, political connections, and even professional decisions can be directly impacted on the public institutions. The code obliges members to be upright, professionally competent, fair in providing services to the people, honest in policy advice, sensitive to democratic power, political independence, involvement in the community, good personnel management, and accountability of the resources of the people. These values are translated into practical expectations. Members are expected to be of service to the whole community, to be truthful, to provide professional advice despite the fact that that advice might not be popular, to treat employees equally, to publicize conflicts of interest, and to be trusted by the people. The code forbids intimidation, harassment, discrimination, improper gifts, conflicts of interest, misuse of confidential information, partisan use of professional power, self-dealing, and abuse of public office. It also deters the act that undermines merit, impartiality, confidence of the people, or the dignity of workers and residents. The code does not forbid any political or external activity. Members are allowed to vote, do some minor personal advocacy that does not conflict with the official duties, inform the populace about the affairs of the government, and may do outside professional activities provided they are disclosed and managed. Such authorizations are significant since citizenship rights cannot be taken away by the ethical public service. Rather, the code establishes limits such that personal interests do not affect their duties to the populace. Human character that the code advanced consistent of integrity, fairness, service, prudence, courage, respect, competence, impartiality, and stewardship. It will motivate members to be responsible, moral agents, not offenders who do not get punished. The code frowns upon egocentrism, dishonesty, intimidation, discrimination, favoritism, self-serving, and partisan use of power. Thus, it treats of the moral conduct and moral character. The code has 12 tenets. Structurally, the postulates bear general principles. Those principles are transformed into standards with the help of interpretive guidelines. The complaints, fact findings, confidentiality, due process, appeals, and sanctions are explained under separate enforcement rules. This structure is usually good, as rules establish accountability, standards minimize uncertainty, and rules create directions. A weakness is that the enforcement procedures are not included in the same document, and therefore the members need to read more than one document to implement the entire ethical system. The encouragement of compliance is largely professional and relational. They are credibility, professional standing, public trust, institutional legitimacy, and the ability to continue to bear public responsibility. Sanctions are more formal and involve private censure, public censure, suspension, expulsion, or a future membership bar, and the revocation of professional credentials. The ICMA document is not only a code of ethics, but also a code of conduct. It is a code of ethics since it defines principles like democratic service, equity, integrity, and professional character. It is also a code of conduct since it establishes enforceable behavioral expectations and penalties. An entirely compliance-based code would primarily be a catalog of what is forbidden and what the penalty will be. The ICMA code goes an extra mile in elaborating the common values and moral causes that underlie its restrictions. This makes the code even more solid since the members can learn not only what they are expected to do, but also why it is necessary. The code is a representation of all 4 moral theories that were examined in our course, but they fulfilled various functions. Regularism manifests itself in the elaborate guidelines and procedures that mandate consistent management of conflicts of interest, political activity, confidentiality, gifts, personnel decisions, and professional conduct. The ontology is found in the honesty, fairness, impartiality, competence, and respect of democratic authority duties. All these responsibilities demand that leaders view residents, employees, elected officials, and co-workers as individuals and not just as means to organizational ends. The concept of consequentialism is evident in the code. In the interest of effective government, citizen trust, communal welfare, fair outcomes, and avoiding harm. Virtue theory is manifested in recurrent reinforcement of integrity, courage, prudence, fairness, respect, and stewardship. Professional judgment is guided by these qualities when there is no particular rule to address the situation. All in all, both the code and regularism provide the framework of implementation and enforcement, the deontology as the preferred basis of morality. Virtue theory and consequentialism maintain focus on the impact of the community, and consequentialism encourages judgment. The most evident theory of leadership is the code of ethical leadership. The code anticipates leaders to work as moral persons and as moral managers. An upright individual is ethical and just. A moral manager creates systems that convey, compensate, and impose ethical expectations. Servant leadership is manifested in the dedication to the entire community, the growth of employees, and the interest of people and democracy, rather than personal benefit. The real leadership manifests itself in openness, realism, self-knowledge, and professional honesty. Inclusive leadership manifests in the form of equity, just people management, community involvement, and dignity. We also have transactional leadership, since the sanctions are used to enforce minimum standards, but it is secondary. The code leans towards ethical and servant leadership, since trust, voice, good judgment, and moral example cannot be established by punishment only. This interpretation is supported by the course readings. Levi Strauss puts an emphasis on service and consensus. Martin Luther King Jr. calls leaders towards a broader moral perspective. Uncertainty is a leadership trait in the story of Moses. Tuckman demonstrates that legitimacy is ruined by the lack of commitment and bad judgment. Dempsey, Bradley, and Montgomery focus on trust, responsibility, and operational climate, whereas Patton is a more authoritarian model. The ICMA code is more in line with the leadership of service and trust than domination or fear. The code is primarily comprehensive and well structured. It touches upon the issues of public service, democratic authority, professional competence, political neutrality, equity, personnel management, conflicts of interest, confidentiality, personal gain, professional development, and enforcement. The intent is obvious, and the 12 tenets form an identifiable framework. The interpretive principles are used to assist members in applying the principles, and the separate procedural rules define the enforcement and appeal. Positive incentives are less explicit than sanctions, but this does not render the code ineffective. The code also articulates the right blend of moral theories and leadership styles in managing people. The ontological obligations safeguard the rights and democratic commitments. Regularian standards create consistency. Consequentialists' argument retain the focus on social impacts, and the virtue theory advocates reasonable decisions. The primary weakness is that the code explains the kind of leader that is desired in more detail than it establishes the role of the leader to establish the system in which employees are able to challenge decisions, report misconduct, and engage in solving ethical issues. The ICMA code might facilitate an audit of ethics, since the tenets of the code can be converted into evidence. The auditor may consider gift records, conflict of interest reports, complaints and resolutions, discipline measures, guidance on political activity, employment and promotion practices, workforce equity information, community participation activities, confidentiality, ethics training, documented policy council, and remedial actions. It would be even more beneficial if all tenets include quantifiable indicators, officials, frequency of review, and records required. Written code presents standards, whereas an audit requires into whether standards do influence behavior. That is why leadership behavior and the climate in the organization in general are crucial. The first improvement that I would recommend is related to the moral content. The code must have a brief ethical decision-making guide to cases where tenets, laws, political expectations, and stakeholders' interests conflict. Such a framework must be able to identify impacted stakeholders, legal and professional obligations, equity issues, potential harms and benefits, conflict of interests, possible alternatives, and justification behind the final decision. This would not substitute for professional judgment. It would bring professional judgment out in the open, more uniform and responsible. The second suggestion is related to leadership. The code must clearly ask leaders to establish a speak-up culture. Leaders ought to ensure that there are open reporting channels. Employees are not punished. They should be respectful to dissent, find out the trends of silence, clarify how issues are handled, and utilize reports to enhance the organizational systems. A similar enhancement would be an annual public ethics report. It might safeguard the confidentiality of cases and disclose training attendance, type of complaints, time of processing, overall results, risk trends, and remedies. This would allow members and residents to have a glimpse of the actual behavior change by the code in the long run. This project enhanced my knowledge of ethical organizational leadership, as it demonstrated that a code is not self-executing. Powerful ethical words are ineffective unless those in charge exemplify it, impose it, establish risk-free reporting protocols, and relate infractions with equitable penalties. The analysis also made it clear that ethical leadership must have the moral individual and moral manager. When procedures, protections, trainings, and accountability systems are ineffective, good intentions do not suffice. The followers are also important, since employees who question, give suggestions, and talk when there is a difference between what is said and the values it is said to be, keep an ethical culture alive. The audit metrics can be added to the final project itself. Every tenet may be accompanied by a quantifiable measure, an accountable individual, a review time, the population that will be served by the stakeholder group, and a remedial measure. This would assist in the differentiation between actual ethical practice and mere adherence of the procedures. To sum up, the ICMA Code of Ethics is a sound professional code that integrates inspiring values and enforceable standards of conduct. It is explicit in purpose, scope, necessary and forbidden behavior, acceptable activity, wanted character, sanctions, and leadership expectations. It has the best moral base of deontology with the assistance of regularianism, consequentialism, and virtue theory. The leadership models that prevail are ethical leadership and servant leadership. The code is full, well organized, and can be used in an ethics audit. But it could be enhanced with a conflict resolution system, specific speak-up policies, quantifiable indicators, and public ethics reporting. Finally, the code is only as valuable as the leaders who bring its ideals to life by establishing equitable systems, day-to-day behaviors, and responsible service to the people. Thank you so much.